My husband left me for a yacht and a rich woman, then came back begging for forgiveness. I still remember the exact sound the anchor made when it hit the water. I wasn't even there, but I swear to God I can hear it when I close my eyes. That heavy mocking splash. The kind of sound that tells you something beautiful has just docked somewhere you're not invited. Let me back up. My name's Dana. 34. I was married to Noah for 8 years. He was the kind of man who didn't just walk into a room, he filled it. He wasn't flashy, not in the loud watch, expensive cologne sort of way. But he had that quiet, magnetic confidence that made people turn their heads and wonder what it would be like to be his priority. For a long time I thought I was. I really believed I was. We met in college, back when both of us were broke, hungry, and stupidly optimistic. He was studying marine biology, yeah, the irony stings now, and I was getting my degree in social work. We bonded over being dreamers with no backup plan. Ramen dinners, laundromats at midnight, and staying up talking about the kind of life we'd build once the dust settled. It was us against the world. We didn't have fireworks every night, but we had something better. Something real. I thought we did anyway. The kind of intimacy that wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Grounded. We made each other laugh. We held hands in silence when the world was too loud. I thought that counted for something. But then came Celeste. Even her name sounds like a trap, doesn't it? Celeste. The kind of name that already knows it's carved into marble. She wasn't just wealthy, she was the kind of rich that never needed to ask the price of anything. She entered our life through Noah's new job. He had been offered a position with an oceanic research group. A dream come true really until I learned who was funding it. Celeste Fontaine. Billionaire's ex-wife. Patron of endangered sea life. Collector of yachts, fine wines, and apparently, other women's husbands. The first time I met her was at a charity gala. I wore my best $89 dress in heels that had fought too many weddings. She wore red silk like it was stitched onto her. She floated toward me, kissed both my cheeks like she was tasting something sour, and called me adorable. I smiled like an idiot and told myself I was being insecure. That she was just a socialite playing scientist with a wallet and a whim. But I felt it. The shift. Noah started working late. First a few hours here and there. Then whole nights on the yacht. We need to monitor a migration pattern, he said. Celeste's team is pushing for faster data. Celeste's team. Right. At home, he grew quieter. He didn't touch me as often, not like before. Sex became a thing we used to do. Conversations turned into checklists. I started walking on eggshells around my own husband. I asked him once, trying not to sound like the jealous wife in a bad movie, if something was going on. His answer was classic Noah, calm, slightly irritated, and just vague enough to make me feel like I was the one creating drama. You always jump to the worst conclusion, he said. I'm doing important work. Why can't you just support me? I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But the signs kept stacking up. He started dressing better. Buying cologne he'd never worn before. Smelling faintly of something flowery and wrong. One day he left his phone unlocked. I wasn't even trying to snoop, I was trying to call his sister, but there it was. A message from Celeste. Next time, let's not wait till the yacht. I've booked the suite in Capri. Capri. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen so long the letters blurred. My hands went numb. I put the phone down and sat there, my brain doing that thing where it tries to explain betrayal in 1,000 justifications. Maybe it was business. Maybe she was just being flirty. Maybe he hadn't replied. Maybe. That night, I didn't say anything. I waited. I watched him eat dinner like nothing had happened. I stared at the man I loved and wondered when exactly he had stopped loving me. Or if he ever did. A week later, a friend texted me. No words. Just a photo. Noah. Shirtless. On Celeste's yacht. His arm around her waist like he owned her. Champagne in his hand, sunglasses on, smiling like a man who had never once struggled with rent or worried about loyalty. That's when I heard it. That anchor. In my head. Splashing down somewhere exclusive. Somewhere I didn't belong. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He sighed like I was the one exhausting him. I'm sorry, he said. But you don't excite me anymore, Dana. I need something more. You've become safe. Safe. That word again. He said it like it was a curse. I wanted to scream. To tear something. But I didn't. I just nodded. It was the strangest thing. When your heart breaks cleanly, there's a kind of clarity that follows. A dead silence in the soul. So I let him leave. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I watched him pack his bag and walk out the door toward a life of luxury and lies. I stood in the same kitchen where we used to dance barefoot at midnight, and I felt absolutely terrifyingly alone. And yet I wasn't broken. Not yet. Just cracked in all the places I used to hold him. The first morning without him felt like waking up on the wrong side of someone else's dream. I rolled over expecting Noah's arm, his body heat, even his annoying pre-coffee sigh. But all I got was a cold pillow and the faint smell of detergent. He'd taken his cologne. I took that personally. I still made 2 cups of coffee. Habit, I guess. I stared at the second cup like it had betrayed me, steaming smugly in the empty seat across the kitchen table. I drank it anyway. 2 cups, 1 broken heart, 0 dignity. Grief isn't loud. Not at first. It's the quietest damn thief. It steals the mundane, the good morning kiss, the shared grocery list, the way he used to hum in the shower. My house echoed like a chapel now. Not sacred. Just abandoned. I didn't cry. Not that day. I wasn't ready to unravel. I was still bargaining with reality like maybe this was temporary. A rich woman's fling. A mistake he'd correct when he realized her yacht couldn't hug him at night. But deep down I knew. The man I loved had already jumped ship, literally. Then came the calls. Our friends, I use that term loosely, started checking in. Translation, they wanted the drama scoop. One of them, Jenna, actually said, well, at least he upgraded financially. Like my marriage had been a starter home and he just upgraded to beachfront. I didn't react. I nodded like I wasn't falling apart in slow motion. Because when you're the woman who got left, people watch you like a zoo exhibit. How long will she last before she breaks down? Will she post cryptic quotes on Instagram? Start wearing eyeliner in the daytime? But the worst wasn't Jenna. It was his mother. She called 2 days after Noah left. Her voice was soft, careful, the kind of voice people use before saying something awful. Dana, she sighed. Sweetheart. You must try to understand, men have needs. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Because nothing screams understanding like being cheated on by a husband who once cried because I forgot his birthday. She went on, unbothered. Said Noah felt unfulfilled. That we'd lost the spark. That he was looking for someone more, aligned with his passions. I guess Celeste's passion for luxury linens and sea turtles made her more suitable than my loyalty and emotional labor. He said you two weren't intimate anymore, she added. There it was. The verdict. Not sexy enough. Not wild enough. I'd been voted off the island of desire. Never mind that I had tried. Initiated. Reached for him. Even when I felt exhausted or invisible. Apparently, familiarity breeds contempt. And Celeste? Celeste was an adventure wrapped in silk. After that call, something cracked. Not broken, no, not yet. But I felt a fissure. A hairline fracture in the part of me that still held on to hope. I started replaying every moment of the past 6 months. Every time he came home late. Every time he looked at me like I was a spreadsheet instead of a partner. And then I spiraled. Not with dramatic flair. Quietly. Elegantly even. The way women are trained to self-destruct, behind closed doors, under warm lighting, with soft music playing in the background. I questioned everything. My body. My choices. My ability to satisfy. I even wondered if I pushed him away without knowing it. Isn't that disgusting? The mind's capacity to blame the wounded instead of the weapon? I missed him too. That's the cruelest part. That the man who betrayed me still lived inside my chest like an echo. I missed his terrible jokes. The way he used to kiss my forehead when he thought I was asleep. I missed the version of him I thought was real. The ghost of who we used to be. One night, I got drunk, red wine, 3 glasses deep, and Googled Celeste. Her life was everywhere. Charity galas. Architectural Digest spreads. Articles with titles like Power, Philanthropy, and The Woman Who Has It All. One headline actually read, The Siren of the Mediterranean. I nearly choked. And then I saw the photo. It was Celeste's birthday. Noah stood beside her on the deck of the yacht, shirt unbuttoned just enough to say, midlife crisis. Champagne in one hand, his other arm wrapped around her like she was a prize he'd won. They looked relaxed. Euphoric. Smug. But what hit hardest was the caption beneath the photo. To new beginnings and better endings. I stared at that line for 10 minutes. I read it out loud. I whispered it like a curse. Better endings. As if I was just the prologue to a story that finally got interesting. As if the 8 years I gave him were just warm-up laps. I wanted to scream. I wanted to destroy something fragile. But I just sat there, surrounded by leftovers of a life that no longer existed, gripping my wine glass like a lifeline. And then for the first time I cried. Ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. Not the quiet cinematic tears. I held into a pillow like it owed me money. I cried for every moment I compromised. Every time I made myself smaller. Every time I loved him harder hoping he'd notice. The next morning I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not because I was puffy-eyed or mascara smeared. But because I looked empty. Like the lights were on but the house had been robbed. That's when something shifted. A flicker. A twitch. Not rage. Not yet. But something sharper than sorrow. A thread of clarity that whispered, you are not going to be his afterthought. If you wanted to rewrite the story, fine. But I was going to write the next chapter myself. And this time, I wouldn't be quiet about it. There's a moment, right after you've cried every tear your body can manufacture, when something else begins to grow in the hollow space left behind. For me, that something was rage. Not hot, impulsive rage. No. Mine was slow, deliberate. A quiet fire licking at my ribs. The kind that makes you clean the entire house at 2 a.m. because if you don't channel the fury into disinfecting your oven, you might start drafting emails you'll regret. Or not regret. Hard to say. I scrubbed the floor tiles until my knuckles bled. Not because they needed it, but because I needed to feel like I had control over something. Over anything. My marriage was gone. My dignity had been shrink-wrapped and sent to Sardinia. But damn it, my floors were going to shine. The next day, I went to work looking like a woman freshly returned from emotional war. My coworkers gave me the polite head tilts of people who know something's wrong but are too afraid to ask. I appreciated that. Pity is almost worse than silence. My boss, Judith, a 52-year-old divorcee with the personality of a chainsaw, called me into her office. She didn't offer tissues or a chair. She just said, "You look like hell. Want to take a personal day?" I almost said no. But then I thought about it. About how every corner of my house was a graveyard of us. Photos, clothes, receipts from Thai takeout places he used to swear were our spots. I needed air. Real air. Not scented candles and lies. So I went home, changed into jeans and a leather jacket I hadn't worn in years, and did something that surprised even me. I went to the yacht club. Let me be clear, I wasn't planning a confrontation. I didn't even know if they were there. But something inside me wanted to see it. The floating palace that had capsized my life. I drove there, heart pounding, hands clenched around the steering wheel like it owed me answers. And there she was. The siren. Yes, that was the actual name painted on the hull. Subtle, right? Giant white and gold monstrosity. Looked like it had its own zip code. I stood at the edge of the dock, staring up at it like it was a villain in a fairy tale. And then Noah came out. Shirtless. Laughing. Carrying a tray of what looked like mimosas and fresh strawberries. Celeste followed behind him, wrapped in a silk robe the color of envy, sunglasses perched on her surgically perfect face. They didn't see me. Thank God. But I saw them. And something about the way she touched his arm, casually, like he was hers, triggered something deep and ancient in me. Not longing. Not jealousy. Disgust. I turned and walked away before I did something legally questionable. But as I walked, a plan began to form. Not a revenge plan, not yet. I'm not that theatrical. But something better. Something smarter. The next morning I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Susan Marshall. She'd handled my coworker's divorce last year and got her the house, the car, and 2/3 of her husband's retirement fund. Susan had a reputation. She wore red lipstick like war paint and smiled like a wolf. We met that afternoon. I brought every document I had, marriage certificate, tax records, texts, even the yacht photo. She looked through everything with the cold efficiency of someone who's seen too many train wrecks. You're entitled to a lot more than you think, she said, clicking her pen. Infidelity changes the tone. I like that. Changes the tone. As if Noah's midlife fantasy had given me a discount code to righteous fury. That night, I drafted an email to Noah. Short. Civil. Deadly. I know it. I've retained legal counsel to begin divorce proceedings. You'll be hearing from Susan Marshall shortly. I trust the siren is treating you well. Dana. He didn't reply. But I saw that he read it. The little seen notification might as well have been a standing ovation. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Celeste. She introduced herself like she was calling to discuss a hair appointment. Polished. Chipper. Fake. I just wanted to say, she began, that I'm sorry if this transition has been hard for you. Noah's told me how things were at home. I know this must be a lot. I almost laughed. She was pity calling me? The woman who stole my husband was offering condolences like I'd lost a pet? I let her talk. She filled the silence with diplomatic fluff, painting herself as some benevolent goddess who didn't mean to hurt anyone. Then she dropped the real reason for the call. We'd appreciate it if you could handle things quietly. For everyone's sake. Ah, there it was. She was scared. Not of me but of the mess. Of bad PR. Of scandal. She wanted me silent, docile, conveniently erased. I smiled even though she couldn't see it. Don't worry, I said, voice like ice. I've been quiet for 8 years. I think I'm done with that now. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on my laptop, and began to write. Not a letter. Not a blog post. But the first draft of my own damn story. The unfiltered, untidy, rage-laced truth. Because if Noah and Celeste wanted a clean getaway, they should have chosen someone less capable of turning pain into prose. And this Phoenix? She was just getting warmed up. I didn't mean for the post to go viral. It started with a late-night wine-fueled rant on my private Facebook page. Just a simple status. Turns out, if your husband cheats on you with a billionaire's ex-wife on a yacht named the Siren, people assume you were the problem. Here's what really happened. I wrote the truth. All of it. No embellishments. No sugarcoating. Just the ugly reality of being the wife left behind for someone who could afford to fly private and sip champagne before noon. I didn't name names, but I didn't need to. Everyone who mattered already knew. Within 12 hours, it had been screenshot and posted on Reddit. Then Twitter. Then Instagram. Someone made a TikTok reenactment, complete with a woman in sunglasses dramatically slapping a shirtless man holding a mimosa. By the end of the week, I was yacht wife. That's what they called me. I should have hated it. I should have been mortified. But honestly, it was exhilarating. For the first time in months, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't pitted. I was heard. Other women started messaging me, strangers who had been left, lied to, traded in. They thanked me for saying what they couldn't. For being loud in a world that wants women to suffer silently. It was messy, yes. But it was mine. Of course, no one noticed. He sent me a text, just one line. You've made your point. Take it down. I stared at the message for a long time. I imagined him reading all those comments, watching his pristine image crumble. The man who once said I was too safe now looked anything but. I didn't reply. Instead, I went live. A friend of mine from college, Lily, had become a content creator. She reached out after the story blew up. Do you want to talk about it? She asked. Like, on camera? I hesitated. I wasn't a public person. I hated the sound of my voice on recordings. But something inside me said yes. Not for revenge. Not for clout. But for every woman who'd ever sat across from a man who blamed her for his cheating. The interview was raw. I didn't cry. I didn't bash him. I just told the truth. About how betrayal feels like being erased. About how easy it is for men to rewrite history when their new lives are shinier. About how dangerous silence can be. It got over 1.2 million views in 3 days. That's when the sponsors started calling. Clothing brands, skincare, even a divorce lawyer podcast. It was surreal. One minute I was crying on my kitchen floor, the next I was getting offered gift boxes and asking my best friend what the hell a collaborate was. And through it all, Celeste stayed quiet. Until she didn't. She released a statement. Some PR-crafted drivel about respecting all parties and being unaware of the full circumstances. She even used the word healing. I nearly choked on my coffee. The woman who called me and asked me to be quiet now wanted to play Switzerland? I didn't respond publicly. Not yet. I had a better idea. Susan, my lawyer, had been working quietly behind the scenes. Turns out Noah had tried to shuffle some of our shared assets around, probably thinking I wouldn't notice while I was too busy being yacht wife. Bad move. Susan froze the accounts. Filed paperwork. Took screenshots. When she called to update me, her voice was giddy. He's squirming, she said. I've never seen a man so desperate to backpedal in Gucci loafers. Good. Let him squirm. I started writing again. Not just rants. Not just social media posts. Real writing. I pitched an op-ed to a major publication about emotional abandonment and why society loves to blame women for the failings of their partners. They accepted it. My face. My words. On a national platform. I cried when I saw it in print. Not because I was proud, though I was. But because the woman in that byline wasn't the same one who begged a man not to walk away. She had been reborn. Then came the message I didn't expect. From his sister. Noah's younger sister, Emily, had always been sweet to me but distant. More his family than mine. I assumed she'd taken his side. I hadn't heard from her in months. But her message was clear. I just want you to know I'm sorry. For what he did. For what our mother said. It was wrong. You didn't deserve it. If you ever want to talk. I'm here. It hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because it was the first real acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't just the leftover. That maybe, just maybe, some of the people who watched it happen were finally starting to see the truth. I didn't reply right away. But I saved the message. That night, I went to my closet. I pulled out the dress I wore the night I met Celeste, the department store one I thought made me look elegant. I looked at it now and smiled. It didn't fit anymore. Not physically, I'd lost weight, thank you heartbreak diet, but emotionally. I wasn't that woman anymore. The one who smiled through subtle insults and begged her husband to come home. I took the dress, folded it carefully, and put it in a donation bag. Let someone else wear it. Someone who hasn't yet learned that being safe doesn't mean being small. Because me? I was done being safe. I was just getting started. I didn't plan on seeing him again. I imagined Noah would fade into his new life the way he always wanted to, like a well-filtered photograph. One where everything is framed just right, and the messy parts are cropped out. But life doesn't work like that. Not when you've become a headline. The opportunity came disguised as an apology. He emailed me. Formal, almost cold, like we were former colleagues rather than ex-spouses. The subject line read simply, talk. I didn't respond at first. I read it. Closed it. Reopened it. Let it sit in my inbox like a splinter. But it itched. Curiosity is a cruel drug. And some part of me, the one still recovering from being left like an afterthought, wanted to know what he'd say. So I agreed. We met at a neutral place. A coffee shop in the city, one of those overpriced minimalist places with exposed brick and baristas who look like failed poets. I got there first. Ordered tea. Sat by the window like I wasn't scanning every face that walked through the door. And then he arrived. He looked tired. Tanned but tired. The kind of exhaustion that seeps in when the fantasy starts to unravel. He wore a linen shirt again, of course he did, but this time it looked wrinkled. Less yacht, more laundry pile. Dana, he said, like the name still belonged to him. I didn't smile. I nodded. He sat down, fidgeted with his napkin. For a man who once gave TED-style talks to dinner guests about ocean currents, he suddenly had nothing to say. So I broke the silence. Why now? He sighed. Because it's all falling apart. I waited. Celeste and he trailed off. It wasn't what I thought. She's controlling. I mean, generous, yes, but I held up a hand. Don't. I'm not here to listen to you complain about your mistress-turned-girlfriend. He blinked. She asked me to sign an NDA, he continued, ignoring the warning. About everything. Even about our breakup. Said she didn't want me damaging her image. I almost laughed. Of course she did. Women like Celeste don't build empires without silencing the help. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it, regret. Not the romantic kind. Not longing. Just the dull, sad realization that he'd bet everything on the wrong hand. I was stupid, he said. I thought I needed more. But you were the one thing that made sense. My throat tightened, not from hope, but from rage. You don't get to say that, I whispered. You don't get to miss me now. He nodded, eyes cast down. I just wanted you to know I was sorry. For everything. For how I left. For making you feel like you weren't enough. There it was. Too late. Too clean. He reached into his bag and pulled out an envelope. I signed the final papers, he said. No contest. You get everything Susan asked for. I took it. Not out of gratitude, but closure. He stood to leave. I hope you find someone who sees you. I looked up at him, leveled my voice, and said, I already do. Me. He didn't respond. Just nodded again and walked out. And that was it. No cinematic hug. No explosive argument. Just the final anticlimactic thud of a door that had already closed months ago. After that meeting, things changed. The internet forgot about me as it does. New scandals, new heartbreaks. But that was fine. I didn't need the attention anymore. I had a different focus. I started writing full-time. It wasn't always glamorous. Some days the words fought me. Some nights I stared at the screen until sunrise. But it was mine. I turned the story of my marriage, my humiliation, and my rise from the ashes into a book. A memoir. The Wife on the Dock. It sold. Modestly at first. Then more. Then more. A talk show invited me to discuss it. A podcast wanted a guest episode. And suddenly people weren't just asking me about my ex, they were asking me about me. That was the real win. Not the book. Not the applause. But the shift. From yacht wife to Dana. Just Dana. Woman. Writer. Survivor. Architect of her own ending. And yes, eventually there was someone new. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Steady. A man who asked questions and waited for answers. Who read my book before our second date. Who didn't flinch when I told him I'd been left for a woman with a yacht and a bank account that could buy small countries. He said, her loss. And meant it. But he wasn't the redemption arc. I was. That's the part no one tells you. The closure you think you want, from them, from the past, from the apology, it doesn't heal you. Not really. What heals you is waking up one morning and realizing you haven't thought about them in weeks. That your laughter doesn't come with guilt. That you don't flinch at the word enough. Because you finally are. Enough. For yourself. For everything that comes next.